Alright, today we are going to do a lesson on the 12-bar blues chord progression. This is a very common blues chord progression. You also see it a lot in roots rock and roll. We're actually just going to spend some time today talking about this, learning the structure of it. The first thing to think about is that a 12-bar blues is a 12-measure chord progression that repeats a lot of times. And what makes it a blues is the fact that we have specific chords occurring in specific places within that form. Now, the three chords that we're going to be using for this, we're in the key of A. We're going to be dealing with the 1 chord, which is A, the 4 chord, which is D, and the 5 chord, which is E. If you haven't done my harmonizing the major scale lesson, you probably want to do that, but just real quickly, the 1 chord is a chord built off of the first note of the major scale. The 4 chord is built off of the 4th note, which happens to be D in this case, and then the 5 chord is an E, which is the 5th note of the major scale. So we have 1, 4, and 5. I'm going to play through a 12-bar blues, and I'm going to tell you where we're at within while I'm doing this. Okay, we're going to start off with the 1 chord for 4 measures. 1, 2, 3rd measure, 4th measure. Now we're going to the 4 chord, 5th measure, 6th measure, back to the 1 chord, 7th bar, here's the 8th bar, here's the 5 chord for a measure, 4 chord for a measure, and then we're going to end up with 2 measures of the 1 chord. Alright, the rhythm part that I'm playing here is just, like kind of what we call a boogie part. In the A, we're playing an A power chord, which is the 5th fret on the 6th string, and I've got my 3rd finger on the 7th fret on the 5th string, which is basically just an A power chord. And on the 2nd and 4th beats of every measure, I'm putting my pinky down on the 9th fret, 5th string. So I'm getting this 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Your first finger is the root, so I've got it here on the A. For the 4 chord, I'm going down to the D, doing the same thing. And for the 5 chord, I'm just moving up to the E right here. I'm playing the same idea. It's a movable chord shape. Now, an easy way to get this into your head, because it's really important to internalize this. If you don't have this memorized, you're really not going to be able to use it. We're going to recite the chord progression. We have 4 bars of the 1 chord, 2 bars of the 4 chord, 2 bars of the 1 chord, a bar of the 5 chord, a bar of the 4 chord, 2 bars of the 1 chord. And that makes up your 12-bar blues. In the written portion, I've got this also all written out. Now, we can dress up this 12-bar blues chord progression a couple ways. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to put a quick change into it. And a quick change is where we take the 4 chord and we put it in the 2nd measure where we'd normally be playing the 1 chord. So we have it something like this. First measure, here's the quick change. That's the 2nd measure on the 4 chord and then back to the 1. And the rest of the chord progression is going to be the same thing. And now we're on the 4 chord in the 5th bar, 6th bar, 7th and 8th measures on the 1 chord, 9th bar, okay, so that's the first thing that we can do is the quick change. The second thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about a turnaround chord. What a turnaround chord is where we take the 5 chord and we put it in the last measure, and that 5 chord is going to want to resolve back to the 1 chord. It basically turns us back around to the beginning of the chord progression and restarts it. So if we're doing a blues, say if I was to start on the 5 chord, there's the 4 chord, and then back to the top. It kind of gives us this kind of boost to turn it back around. Makes it a little bit more interest. You've probably heard people play turnaround licks, and a lot of times people will just call this a turnaround. A lick like that is played in the last 2 bars of a blues. And what I'm doing is I'm ending on the 5 chord here, on the turnaround chord. So the 11th measure of the blues is the lick. And then the 12th measure, we're going to the turnaround chord right there. We can deconstruct it that way. It's also nice to make an intro if you're starting off a tune. 4, 1. Then there's the quick change. There's all different kinds of ways you can rearrange the stuff to make a song out of it. If we were ending a blues, we actually wouldn't use the turnaround chord. We would play the 1 chord to give us some resolution. So even if I was to play that turnaround lick, now notice on both these, the turnaround chord, when I'm playing the turnaround lick, I'm going from a half step above it and going down into the 5 chord, and when I'm doing the ending, I'm going a half step above it and going down into the 1 chord. Basically what it is, it's just a chromatic approach chord. It creates some interests. The chord voicing I'm using right here is a 7th chord, and I've got I'm playing an F to start with because that's the approach chord into the 5, and the F chord, we've got the 8th fret, 5th string, 7th fret, 4th string, and then I'm playing the 8th fret on the 3rd string. Makes a nice little dominant chord shape, and I'm just sliding down into the 5 chord. I'm playing a B flat 7 chord into the A7 chord for an ending. So if I was going to end the song, it would do that. So I'm going to start at the 5 chord, and I'm going to do a turnaround back to the top, and then I'm going to stop, and then I'm going to do an ending. So starting on the 5 chord. So that's the turnaround back to the beginning. Now if I was to do the same thing but go to the 1 chord, and that gives us the ending. The last thing I want to do is give you just show you the turnaround lick real quickly. In the key of A, we're actually going to be starting on the 9th fret on the 3rd string, and we have what they're called 6. They're 2 notes that are 6 scale tones apart. We have the 3rd string 9th fret, 1st string 9th fret. Notice I'm using these 2 fingers, the 2nd finger and the 3rd finger. The 1st and 4th fingers I'm keeping out of here because it's going to make it a little bit easier to play. And then you can either pick. I like to hybrid pick, so I'm using my pick on the 3rd string and my middle finger on the 1st string. And you can do these a million different ways. It's just a real simple way of doing it. I'll play it one time for you, and you'll see that I'm just moving down 1 fret at a time. 9th fret, 8th fret, 7th fret, and then I'm ending right here on these 2 notes. My middle finger is still on the 3rd string, but I'm on the 6th fret. My 1st finger now is playing the 5th fret. So instead of having them on the same fret, 9th fret, 8th fret, 7th fret, when I get here, it actually changes. And then I do either the turnaround chord or the ending chord. There's a ton of turnarounds you can do. That's going to be kind of our basic example one. In the written portion of this, I'll probably have a couple more written out just to give you a little bit of extra vocabulary.